All right, so are you ready to ditch those boring classrooms and learn English in a totally different way? Because today we're going to really dive into Richmond Language Academy, RLA for short, and how they're kind of changing the game for learning English in Cebu in the Philippines.
Yeah, and it's not just like a marketing thing. RLA actually has a super unique approach, especially compared to those typical ESL schools you see all over Cebu.
Yeah.
It's not about being stuck in a dorm just doing textbook stuff.
So no more grammar drills until you just want to fall asleep. I'm already kind of interested. We've got RLA's FAQ document here, which is all the details, but let's get straight to it. What makes RLA so different?
It all comes down to this. RLA calls itself a personalized tutorial service, which might sound kind of formal, but it really shows how they work.
Yeah.
They don't do that one-size-fits-all thing, and instead they really focus on making the experience perfect for you.
Okay, so how does that actually work? What does this personalized thing actually look like?
Imagine this. Instead of being stuck in a classroom, you're out in a crazy market practicing your bargaining skills in English. Or maybe you're learning how to order food at a local restaurant and you're actually getting things done at the same time.
That's definitely not like memorizing verbs from a textbook.
Right?
It sounds like RLA is all about what they call the English Exposure Program, or EEP.
You got it. The EEP is their main program, and it's all about learning by doing. Instead of just passively learning stuff, you're actively using English to do real-world tasks, which helps you learn the language way faster.
So it's kind of like learning by doing, but with a specific goal in mind.
Exactly. It's not just about randomly using English. It's about having a goal like ordering food or asking for directions and then using English to actually do it. And because you're doing real-world stuff, the learning sticks with you a lot better.
That makes a lot of sense. But how do they make these tasks personalized? Is it just a list of activities that everyone does?
Nope, not at all. RLA takes personalization very seriously. They start by figuring out your English level and what you want to learn. Then they design tasks just for you, focusing on the areas where you need the most practice.
So if I wanted to focus on business English, they could create tasks like presentations or negotiations or stuff like that.
Exactly. Or if you're more interested in everyday conversations, they could make tasks that involve talking to locals, ordering food, or using public transportation. It's all about tailoring the experience to what you need and what you're interested in.
That's pretty cool. So no two students would have the exact same experience at RLA.
That's the idea. It's like having your own custom language learning journey. And because you're always using English in real situations, you make progress really fast.
Okay, I'm liking this concept, but let's get to the practical stuff. How long are these programs?
They have courses that range from 1 week to 4 weeks or even longer. So you can choose how long you want to stay based on your time and what you want to achieve.
And what about the cost? I'm sure it changes depending on how long the program is.
They break it down per week, and they have 3 options: budget, mid-range, and luxury. Each option has different accommodations and amenities, which we can talk about later.
Perfect. So there are options for every budget and level of comfort. This is starting to sound pretty good. But before we get lost in dreams of island life, can you give me an example of what a typical task might be like in the EEP?
Sure. Let's say you want to learn how to bargain. Your teacher might take you to a local market and give you something specific to buy, like a souvenir or some fresh fruit. Your task is to negotiate the best price you can using English, all while you're in a real shopping situation.
That sounds fun and maybe a little challenging, and you'd be learning way more than just vocabulary. You'd be picking up on cultural cues and local customs, all while you're getting better at English.
You got it. It's about way more than just the language. It's about immersing yourself in the culture, growing as a person, and really stepping out of your comfort zone.
I can already picture myself trying to get the best deal on a mango and hopefully not getting ripped off. This learning by doing thing is really interesting. But how do you know if you're actually making progress? Do they just give you the tasks and hope you figure it out?
No, not at all. One of the things that makes RLA different is their focus on feedback. They won't just give you a task and leave you alone. Your teacher will be there with you every step of the way to help you out.
So they're kind of like a language learning coach.
Exactly. After each task, you'll get feedback on how you did. What did you do well? What could be better? It's like having your own progress report that helps you see how you're doing and where you need to improve.
I love that they have that feedback system. It makes the whole thing feel more organized and purposeful. So it's not just throwing you in the deep end and seeing if you sink or swim.
Yeah.
They're there to guide you and help you succeed.
And they understand that everyone learns at their own speed. Some people might be ready to jump right into those real-world tasks, while others might need a bit more time to feel confident.
Which leads to our next question. How does RLA handle that initial assessment? How do they figure out where you're starting from and what tasks you're ready for?
They have a pretty thorough assessment process. It starts with a written test to see how good your grammar and vocabulary are. Then you have a speaking test with a teacher to see how well you speak and listen. But it's more than just testing your knowledge.
What do you mean?
They also want to understand how you learn, what your goals are, and what you want to achieve at RLA.
Right.
They'll ask about your interests, your hobbies, even your fears or worries about learning English.
So they're trying to understand you as a learner, not just how good your English is.
Exactly. It's about creating a learning experience that's made just for you and what you want to achieve.
This is sounding less like a school and more like well, like they said, a personalized tutorial service. I'm starting to see how this whole personalized approach could really make a difference in how you learn a language.
And it's not just about individualization. It's also about creating a supportive and fun learning environment. They want you to feel comfortable, confident, and excited to learn.
That's a really good point because even the most personalized program won't work if you're not motivated or interested.
Absolutely. And that's where RLA really shines. They've created an environment that's both stimulating and supportive. They have a team of teachers who love helping students succeed, and they've built a real sense of community among the students.
So it's not just about you as an individual, it's about being part of a group of learners who are all on this journey together.
Exactly. And that sense of community can be really motivating and inspiring. You're not just learning from your teacher, you're also learning from the other students, sharing experiences and helping each other along the way.
That makes a lot of sense, especially if you're going to a new country and might be feeling homesick or a little overwhelmed. Having that support system can make a big difference.
For sure. It's like having a built-in group of friends who are all going through the same thing.
Okay, I'm getting excited just thinking about all the possibilities, but before we get carried away, I think we need to talk about well, the elephant in the room, or maybe the island in the ocean. We're talking about Cebu here. How does being in Cebu play into the whole RLA experience?
That's a great question. Cebu isn't just a place where RLA happens. It's a really important part of it. The island's rich culture, lively atmosphere, and friendly people all help create an immersive and unforgettable learning environment.
So it's not just about learning English in Cebu, it's about learning English through Cebu.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Cebu becomes your living classroom. You're not stuck inside a traditional school. You're out in the streets, talking with locals, exploring markets, trying new foods, all while practicing your English.
It's like the whole island is one giant language lab.
And that's where the real magic happens.
Yeah.
You're not just memorizing words from a list, you're actually using the language in real situations, surrounded by the sights, sounds, and smells of a vibrant culture.
Okay, I'm convinced. Sign me up. But before I book my flight, I need to know more about those accommodations we talked about earlier. What exactly are those budget, mid-range, and luxury options all about?
Well, let's take a closer look at those accommodations and see what kind of lifestyle is waiting for you in Cebu while you're learning English the RLA way.
Okay, so let's talk about these different places to stay. I'm all for really getting into the learning experience, but I also like having a comfy place to relax after a long day of, actually using my English out there in the real world.
Yeah, comfort is definitely important,
Yeah.
especially when you're in a new place and focusing on learning. RLA gets that, and their different accommodation options show that. So let's start with the budget option.
Okay, so what's the budget option like?
It's like cozy and practical. You'd be staying in a guest house style place, which usually means you share a kitchen and common areas with other people. The FAQ says these places always have the basics: a comfy bed, a desk to study at, and of course Wi-Fi.
So you've got the essentials covered, but there's also that social aspect of sharing spaces. You might even end up practicing English with other students while having a late-night snack.
Exactly. And the FAQ actually mentions a coffee shop nearby that's a popular spot for RLA students. Imagine getting a nice iced coffee and going over your vocabulary with your classmates.
Okay, that sounds pretty nice. What about the mid-range option? What kind of upgrade is that?
Mid-range gives you more privacy and better amenities. Think like individual studio apartments or condo-style living. And here's the cool part. Most mid-range places include access to a pool and a gym.
Well, that's a nice bonus. You're not only immersed in the language and culture, but you can also stay active.
Right. RLA understands that learning involves your whole self. A healthy body usually means a healthy mind, too,
Totally. All right, now for the fancy one, the luxury tier. Tell me, what's it like to learn English in luxury?
Imagine this. You wake up in a big suite, maybe with a balcony that looks out over the ocean. You have a fully equipped kitchen, a washing machine and dryer right in your apartment, and access to all these resort-style amenities. Think spas, multiple pools, maybe even a private beach.
Okay, hold on. I'm already packing. But seriously, this sounds amazing. Is there like a catch?
Well, luxury does come with a higher price tag,
Hmm.
but RLA actually gives you free access to a lot of these resort facilities depending on how long you stay. So you do a longer program, you could get even more perks.
That's a smart way to encourage people to stay longer. It's like they're saying, hey, learn English with us for a month and get a free vacation too. I'm not complaining.
They've definitely found a way to combine comfort and learning in a really attractive way. But no matter what accommodation option you choose, you're still getting the same high-quality teaching and personalized learning through the EKP.
That's a really important point. The accommodation is just the place where you stay. The real heart of the RLA experience is that innovative way they teach languages.
You got it. But speaking of important stuff, let's not forget about food. Nobody wants to study on an empty stomach, right?
You're telling me. So what's the deal with food at RLA? Do they have a cafeteria? Do I have to figure out meals on my own?
Actually, the FAQ emphasizes that meals are included in all of the accommodation options. So that's one less thing to worry about.
Okay, tell me more. What kind of food can I expect?
They mention having both Filipino and continental breakfast options. So whether you want to try traditional Filipino food or something more familiar, they've got you covered. For lunch and dinner, they have a mix of local dishes and international cuisine. They even say they specialize in fusion cuisine.
Fusion cuisine, huh?
Hmm.
Interesting. So they're not just exposing you to English, they're exposing you to different kinds of food too.
Looks like it.
Hmm.
And from a practical standpoint, having meals included takes the pressure off of finding places to eat, figuring out menus, and maybe even struggling with the language.
That's a big plus, especially in those first few days when you're still getting used to the language and the place. It lets you focus on learning without stressing about where to eat.
Exactly. It's all part of creating a supportive environment where students can focus on what matters most, getting better at English.
Okay, I have to say, this is all sounding really tempting.
Yeah.
But let's be real for a second. It can't be all sunshine and mango smoothies, can it? There has to be some kind of structure and discipline involved.
Of course, learning a language takes effort, dedication, and you have to be motivated. But RLA gives you the framework and support to make the process as enjoyable and effective as possible.
So they give you the tools, but it's up to you to actually use them.
Right. And about that structure thing, the FAQ does talk about a typical daily and weekly schedule. They have classroom time from 9:10 in the morning to noon, followed by task-based activities from 1:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon.
So there's a good mix of structured learning and actually using what you learn. But I guess those afternoon activities could end earlier depending on what you're doing, right?
That's right. And the FAQ emphasizes that after each task, you'll have a review session with your teacher to get feedback and talk about how you're doing.
So it's not just about doing the task, it's about thinking about them analyzing how you did and figuring out what you learned.
Exactly. It's about making those experiences really count. And then you have your evenings and weekends free to explore Cebu, relax, or maybe even join some organized tours that RLA offers.
Wait, tours. Tell me more about that. What kind of tours are they?
They have a city tour that takes you to historical places, shopping areas, and other interesting spots in Cebu. And then there are island tours where you can experience the natural beauty of the Philippines.
Island hopping while learning English? Sign me up. But I'm guessing these tours cost extra, right?
Yeah, they do. But they're a great way to practice your English in a more relaxed setting, talk with locals, and see the beauty of Cebu beyond just the city.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a perfect mix of learning and fun. But let's get back to the details for a minute. The FAQ also mentions some practical stuff like class size and dress code. Can you tell me more about those?
Sure, RLA mostly focuses on one-on-one teaching. So you'll get personalized attention from your teacher, which is a huge advantage for learning a language. However, they can do small groups sometimes, like if you're traveling with a friend or family member.
So you could have a learning buddy with you. That's cool. What about the dress code? Anything I need to pack besides my swimsuit and hiking boots?
Casual clothes are fine for most classes and activities, but they do say that you might need to dress semi-formal for some things, like if you're visiting universities or companies as part of your program.
That makes sense. It's always good to be prepared. So you're learning English, immersing yourself in the culture, exploring the island, but what happens when something unexpected happens? I'm talking about emergencies, those what-if situations that can come up when you travel to a foreign country.
That's a really good point. It's always smart to be prepared for anything. Luckily, RLA has a whole section in their FAQ about these what-if situations.
Okay, let's talk about that. What kinds of emergencies or unexpected things do they cover?
They cover all kinds of things, from small inconveniences like a leaky faucet in your accommodation to more serious things like getting sick or hurt losing your passport, or even running out of money while you're there.
Wow, they've really thought of everything. So what happens if, say, you get a bad cold or twist your ankle while you're exploring?
The FAQ really stresses how important it is to have your own travel insurance to cover any medical costs. But RLA staff will help you get to a hospital if you need it.
That's good to know. So they're there to help you figure out the healthcare system, which can be confusing in a different country.
Exactly. And they also give you contact info for local emergency services and your country's embassy.
Okay, good to know. What about less serious emergencies like losing your passport or having your phone stolen?
The FAQ says to tell RLA staff right away, and they'll guide you through what to do. They can help you contact your embassy, file a police report, and support you during that stressful time.
It sounds like they have a good support system in place to help students deal with unexpected challenges. But what about emergencies that happen before you even get to Cebu? Like, what if there's a typhoon or some kind of political unrest?
That's a valid concern, and the FAQ does address those situations too. They have a clear policy about refunds and cancellations if there's an emergency or something unexpected that stops you from starting your program.
So you're not just left hanging with no options.
No, not at all. They offer refunds if you cancel at least 14 days before the course starts. And if something happens within that 14-day window, they give you the option to reschedule your course or transfer your enrollment to someone else.
So you still have some flexibility even if things change last minute. That's reassuring. It makes it less stressful to commit to a program months in advance. But speaking of commitments, let's talk about technology. It's hard to imagine learning these days without some kind of digital stuff. What's RLA's approach to technology?
Good question. And the FAQ actually mentions that RLA is all about a paperless system using technology to make learning better.
Okay, I'm curious. What does a paperless system actually mean? Are we talking like virtual classrooms, augmented reality textbooks?
Not quite that futuristic yet. The FAQ says they mostly use Google services as their platform for communicating, collaborating, and sharing resources.
Makes sense. Google has a lot of tools that are easy to use and everyone can access. But do you have to bring your own laptop or tablet? What if you want to travel light?
They encourage students to bring their own devices, but they do have a few laptops and tablets you can borrow if you need one.
So they've got you covered no matter what your tech situation is. But did they mention they were making their own app? What's happening with that?
It sounds like the app is still being developed, but the FAQ hints that it could make communication and coordination between students, teachers, and staff even smoother.
Interesting. I can see how an app could make a lot of those logistical things easier and make the whole experience better. But for now, it seems like they're using existing technology to support their unique way of teaching.
And they're definitely open to new ideas and trying out new ways to use technology to help their students.
Okay, we've covered a lot here, from the theory behind their teaching method to the practical details of everyday life in Cebu. But there's one question that keeps popping up in my mind. How effective is this learning by doing approach, really? Is there any proof that task-based learning actually helps you learn a language better?
That's a really important question. And luckily, more and more research is showing that task-based language teaching really works.
Okay, so what does the research say about this approach?
Studies show that students who do tasks that make them use language in meaningful ways tend to become more fluent, accurate, and confident compared to students who mainly focus on traditional grammar drills and exercises.
So it's not just some trendy teaching style, it's actually backed up by science.
Exactly. And the reason it works so well is that it uses how our brains are naturally wired to learn. When we're actively doing something that has a real purpose, our brains are more likely to make connections and remember information.
It's kind of like the difference between reading about how to ride a bike and actually getting on a bike and trying to ride it.
Exactly. That hands-on experience helps you understand and master something way better.
So RLA's approach isn't just innovative, it's actually based on the latest research on how to effectively learn a language.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so interesting. They're not just following trends, they're using solid teaching principles.
But I have to ask, is task-based learning really good for everyone? Are there some types of learners who might have trouble with this method?
That's a great question. And it's important to remember that there's no single teaching method that works perfectly for everyone. People learn in different ways and have different preferences.
So are there any potential downsides to this approach? Could it be too much for some learners to be constantly put into real-world situations?
That's a valid concern. Some learners might feel anxious or overwhelmed at first about using English in real-life situations.
So how does RLA deal with that anxiety? Do they just throw you in and hope for the best?
No, not at all. They understand that some learners might need more support and guidance, especially at the beginning. That's why they focus on creating a safe and supportive learning environment where students feel okay taking risks and making mistakes.
So they're there to help you if you stumble.
Exactly. They give you the support you need to gradually build your confidence and fluency. And remember, those tasks are personalized. They start with easier tasks that match your level and slowly get more challenging as you improve.
So it's not like they expect you to give a presentation to a bunch of executives on your first day. They ease you into it.
Exactly. It's a gradual process of learning new skills and getting more confident. And because the tasks are so interesting and related to what you like, you're more motivated to learn.
That makes a lot of sense. So even though task-based learning might not be for everyone, RLA seems to be doing things to address those challenges and create a learning experience that's as inclusive and supportive as possible.
And they get that every learner is different. What works for one person might not work for another. That's why making things personalized and flexible is so important to their approach.
Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about how effective RLA's approach seems to be. But let's change gears for a second and talk about something that really stood out to me in the FAQ. Their commitment to doing things ethically. Can you talk more about that?
Of course, ethical considerations are super important in any educational setting, and RLA definitely knows that. They have a whole section in their FAQ about how they're committed to treating student staff and the local community fairly.
That's great to hear. So what specific ethical practices did they talk about?
They emphasize that they follow local labor laws and that they're committed to paying their staff fair wages and giving them good benefits. They also talk about how they try to promote sustainable tourism and support local businesses.
So they're not just focused on teaching English, they're also thinking about their impact on the community and the environment.
It's exactly. It's about doing business with integrity and responsibility. And they also have a strict policy against discrimination and harassment, which makes sure everyone has a safe and inclusive learning environment.
That's really important. It's about creating a space where everyone feels respected, valued, and empowered to learn.
You said it.
Yeah.
And they also highlight their commitment to being transparent about their prices and policies so students know exactly what they're getting into.
It's all about building trust and having open communication, which is so important for a good learning experience.
Absolutely. And they also have a section on student safety and well-being, outlining what they do in case of emergencies and how they provide support if any problems come up.
So they've got your back academically and personally.
It seems like it. They're committed to creating a learning experience that focuses not just on learning the language, but also on growing as a person and feeling good.
I have to admit, I'm really impressed by how much attention RLA pays to detail, not just in their teaching methods, but also in how they do things ethically. It shows they really care about creating a positive and impactful learning experience.
I agree. It's nice to see a language school that's not just focused on making money and actually prioritizes the well-being of its students, staff, and the community.
All right, I think we've covered pretty much everything from the FAQ. What stands out to you as the most unique or interesting thing about RLA?
For me, it's how they've combined their innovative teaching methods, their focus on personalization, and their ethical values into a really complete learning experience.
It's not just about learning English, it's about growing as a person, experiencing a new culture, and making a positive difference.
Exactly. And they've managed to create a learning environment that's both exciting and supportive, challenging, and fun.
Okay, I'm sold. Where do I sign up?
Hold on a sec. We still have a few more interesting things to talk about when it comes to RLA.
Okay, I'm listening. What other insights do you have? All right, spill the beans. What else is there about RLA?
Well, the FAQ doesn't directly say this, but I think it's interesting to think about how RLA's approach affects culture,
Okay, I see what you mean. How does learning English in this real world immersive way change how students see Filipino culture?
Well, think about it. In a normal classroom, you're mostly just talking to your teacher and maybe some other students. But with RLA's way of doing things, you're out in the community talking to locals and dealing with everyday stuff.
So you're not just learning the language, you're actually experiencing the culture. That's got to change how you see the people and the place.
Exactly. Instead of just reading about Filipino customs and stuff in a textbook, you're actually living them. You're bargaining in the markets, ordering food from street vendors, maybe even going to local festivals.
It's like a super intense cultural experience. And I bet those experiences help you understand and appreciate Filipino culture even more.
Yeah, for sure. It's one thing to learn about a culture from far away, but it's totally different to experience it yourself, to talk to people and figure out how daily life works.
So RLA isn't just teaching English. It's helping people understand each other's cultures. That's pretty cool.
And it goes both ways. While the students are learning about Filipino culture, they're also sharing their own cultures and ideas with the locals they meet.
It's like this awesome exchange of knowledge and experience.
Exactly. And that kind of cultural exchange can be really great for everyone. It helps people connect challenges, stereotypes, and encourages people to be more global citizens.
Okay, I'm getting a little deep here, but I think you've touched on something really important. Arway's approach is about more than just language. It's about building real connections between people from different cultures.
And those connections can spread beyond the classroom or how long the program is.
It's like planting a seed that can grow into something much bigger, something that helps people understand and care about each other across cultures.
Well said. And that brings us back to that idea of learning as a whole. Arlie isn't just about learning a skill, it's about opening your mind, seeing things from different perspectives, and becoming a more involved and informed person in the world.
I'm definitely feeling inspired. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about RLA but maybe not sure yet?
If you're looking for a traditional classroom where you just sit and listen, RLA probably isn't for you. But if you're ready to really jump into a learning experience that will change you, if you're excited to challenge yourself, step out of your comfort zone, and connect with people from different backgrounds, then RLA might be exactly what you're looking for.
It's not for everyone. It takes a certain kind of person, someone who's open, curious, and ready for anything.
You got it. But the rewards can be amazing. You won't just get better at English. You'll also understand yourself better, learn about Filipino culture, and see the world in a new way.
So to our listeners, if this has sparked your interest, if you're feeling adventurous, I say go for it. Check out RLA's website, read their whole FAQ, and picture yourself on this incredible journey.
And remember, the best learning experiences usually happen when we push ourselves outside of what's comfortable. So embrace the challenge, be open to new things, and who knows, maybe you'll discover a whole new side of yourself along the way.
I love that. Well, that's all the time we have for our deep dive into Richmond Language Academy. It sounds like an amazing opportunity to not only learn English, but also to have a truly unique and enriching experience. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those language learning dreams alive.